The mutant shoved me against the wall, snapping at my face with its large fangs as I struggled to hold it off. My hands were digging into its arms, but I quickly realized my grip was beginning to slip. I was literally tearing his flesh off, unable to hold on to his actual body. For a second, I thought it was the end. That was how I would die. A mutant creature tearing into my jugular and ripping through my flesh like Spencer through a candy bar. I was proven wrong when I spotted Spencer in the corner of my eye, blasting the monster's side with a fire extinguisher. One of them managed to grab his arm, and he slipped out of his hoodie, slamming the extinguisher into its face. The mutant collapsed, its face having caved in from the hit. Despite the disgusting sight, Spencer was able to swing the extinguisher at the mutant trying to eat my face, bashing it aside. I reached out, grabbing my pistol and blowing its brains out before aiming upwards, shooting another two going for Spencer, and then a third one who had pinned down Hunter. A fourth then took Spencer from behind, slashing at the young boy. He lunged forward instinctively, falling to the ground as I shot the mutant 4 times in the chest. "Get up!" I shouted, watching as the second wave approached the open doors. Another set of double doors also burst open, revealing a third wave. The glass windows that stretched from the floor to the ceiling also shattered, another small horde bursting into the hallway. "Fall back!" I shouted, firing back once more before my gun clicked. Hunter helped up Spencer, and I yanked him to the door to the stairwell. I tried to lock it, but was unable to do so before a mutant smashed through the glass. The 3 of us took off upstairs, watching as the mutants followed closely behind us. "Whoa!" I fell to the ground, one of the mutants having grabbed my ankle. I spun around quickly and tried to kick its face away, but it was already trying to rip into my jeans. The creature sunk its teeth into my shoe, and I thought that was a good thing, at least until the rubber began to burn away. "Someone get this thing off me!" I shouted, as I fumbled for one of the 2 pistol clips in my hoodie. I pulled the clip out of my pocket and moved it upwards into my gun, only to miss and drop the clip down the stairs. I cursed loudly and continued to kick, nailing the mutant several times in the eye. Spencer picked up the fire extinguisher, tossing it down the stairs and bashing the mutant in the head. He flew backwards, knocking down several other mutants in the process. Hunter then grabbed my hand, helping me back up. The 3 of us ran through the door to the dorms upstairs, Hunter locking it afterwards. I fell to my knees, breathing heavily while Hunter leaned up against the wall and Spencer collapsed onto the floor. I took a moment to reload my gun with the extra clip from my hoodie pocket. "Nice job, little boy Blue," I commented to Spencer. "Where'd you learn that?"
A video game. Telltale, actually. The Walking Dead.
I sighed, wiping the sweat off my face before turning around. A mutant was banging on the doors, the others clawing at the metal barrier to try and get through. It would hold, but we didn't know for how long.
"Let's get the others and go,"
Hunter said. He stuffed his machete back into the sheath of his belt, approaching Spencer, who turned over to reveal a large cut on his arm. I drew my weapon, staring him down in frustration.
What's up?
He asked as he looked up at us.
Something happened?
"Spencer, you're..." The boy then looked down at his arm, his mouth gaping open.
Uh-oh.
"Sorry, Spence." The gunshot echoed through the room, and only seconds later we heard a girl rush into the hallway. Maddie, her pump shotgun in hand, ran out of Isabella's dorm and down the hallway, stopping dead in her tracks.
"What happened?"
I crossed my arms, holstering my weapon. "Well, little boy Blue over here nearly got us killed trying to get his video game back. And now, he's infected. If Hunter hadn't intervened, then I'd have put him down by now."
And thank you for that, Hunter.
Spencer said as he sat up. Hunter grabbed my gun and shoved it aside before I could pull the trigger, creating a hole in the wall.
"Infected?"
she asked, with a worried look. I nodded. "One of the mutants sliced his arm open." The young girl knelt down, examining the wound. She then shook her head.
"He's injured, but he's not infected."
"And how do you know that?"
Hunter asked.
"Wounds from the mutants create purple distended lines from around the wound, which also begins to turn purple. His shows no sign of it, so that means whatever cut him wasn't a mutant. As long as no part of a mutant or its blood comes in contact with any open wounds, then you're safe.
Spencer gave a sigh of relief.
Oh, thank God. I was afraid I was gonna die before I 100%ed The Witcher 3.
Maddie helped him up, only to jump after hearing the growl of a mutant from the other side of the door. We need to leave now. Those things are inside, and they won't stop until we're all dead.
I'll guard the door. Grab your stuff.
Maddie said as she held up her pump shotgun, aiming at the door. The three of us rushed into the room, Spencer picking up his backpack. Hunter picked up the duffel bag, only after snatching one of the black handguns out of it and stuffing it into his waistband. I grabbed all of the medical supplies and began stuffing it in my backpack before looking up, freezing at the sight of Quinn. Quinn was standing up, wearing a pair of black sweatpants and a bloody white t-shirt he had been wearing beneath his purple jacket. He was standing up, attempting to walk across the room with the white gaze covering his eye. While he nearly tripped over Isabella's overturned vacuum sitting on the right side, he managed to pick up the second black handgun inside the bag and take it for himself.
Hey man, are you sure about that?
Quinn gave him a cold stare.
I am perfectly capable of holding and firing a gun, Hunter. Just because I have lost the ability of sight in my right cornea does not mean that I cannot shoot.
Alright, but if you end up blowing off one of my piggies, I'm coming after you.
One by one, we all rushed outside the dorm room and into the hallway, Isabella behind us all, scrambling to pack the necessities. We then watched as the door broke off its hinges, beginning to fall forward off the wall. I turned to the others and shouted, "Barricade the door! Do not let them inside!" Maddie and Isabella and Spencer rushed inside, grabbing things and pushing them down the hall towards the door. First the dresser, then 2 nightstands, followed by the bed. However, it didn't take long for the mutants to break through, crawling through the crack in the door and over the furniture. I fired, blowing the first one's brains out as they slowly began to enter the hallway. However, the opening wasn't big enough to storm us, so we had the tactical advantage. Still, the barricade wouldn't last forever.
Axel, Julia, run! Open the door at the end of the hall!
Maddie shouted. We began to back up, slowly making our way down the long hall of dorm rooms while we continued to gun down the incoming mutants. Hunter, after unloading his entire clip, reached into his duffel bag and pulled out the hunting rifle, firing several times at the oncoming monsters. On the other side of the hall, the 2 kids rushed to the door and tried to open it. However, the door wouldn't budge.
It's locked!
Axel shouted.
Whoever owns it must have locked the door before they left. We need their keycard.
Isabella shouted. Screw the key card! Someone open that air vent! On the floor beside the door was a small metal grate covering an air vent that most likely led into the room. Isabella knelt down quickly, and Hunter reached into his backpack, tossing her a screwdriver. However, it was the wrong one, and he was forced to toss her a second. She quickly unscrewed the vent, tossing the grate to the side so Axel could get inside. The young boy knelt down, crawling through the small vent before emerging on the other side. Seconds later, the door opened. One by one, we bolted into the room, Maddie going last and slamming the door shut as the mutants broke through the barricade at the end of the hall.
All right, where to next?
Isabella asked. Quinn approached the window before answering.
It appears that if we drop down from this window, we can escape into the RV in the parking lot.
How do you expect us to do that?
Hunter and I approached the window, looking outside to see several mutants in the parking lot having broken out of the school building below. They were stumbling through the lot, looking for something to tear into. On the other side was the RV, parked next to the side building across from us, and a large open shipping truck filled with boxes and what seemed to be propane tanks. However, I noticed a slight ledge on the side of the building that led towards the RV.
If we can somehow make our way across this ledge, we can hop on top, climb through the sunroof, and get out of here.
Hunter told the others.
Are we sure about this?
Maddie asked. I shrugged. It's either that, or we stay here, and die. A hand suddenly burst through the wooden door. A mutant, trying to reach out and claw at us. Quinn backed away quickly, holding the firearm in his hand tightly. Taking that as a signal, I climbed outside the window and onto the ledge. One by one, we made our way along the ledge. heading towards the RV. I went first, making it across with ease, followed by Quinn, Isabella, and Spencer. Hunter and Maddie then both began to make their ways across, slowly inching across the ledge. However, they stopped halfway to wait for the kids.
I don't want to.
Julie exclaimed, tearing up slightly as she eyed the ledge.
Please, I can't do it.
Julia, it's fine. It's just a ledge. I'll hold your hand the entire time.
Axel told her.
Please, I'm not leaving without you.
Just leave me. I'll be fine.
Julia, get your ass out on this ledge!
Maddie shouted. The crying girl looked at her sister, shaking her head no. If it wasn't our only option, I wouldn't have done it either. But it was, so she had no choice. Axel slowly began to pull Julia towards the window, the young girl unable to fight him anymore. He helped her onto the windowsill, and she gripped the edge, trying to keep him from pulling her outside.
Come on, Julia. We're so close.
Please stop.
She asked, through tears. Neither of them were given a chance to continue before the door behind them burst open. 2 mutants, with a swarm following behind them, stumbled into the roof. Axel quickly yanked Julia through the window and onto the ledge as one of the mutants charged at them, falling through the gap and down to the parking lot below. The two began to make their ways across the ledge until a mutant reached out of the window, grabbing Julia's leg. She shrieked, trying to kick it away as Axel tried to pull her back. Somehow, the mutant was much stronger than the two of them combined.
Maddie! Help me!
Maddie tried to inch back along the ledge towards Julia, Hunter trying to stop her. I reached down and fumbled for my pistol, holding it up to try and shoot the mutant. The Desert Eagle's inaccuracy rendered that impossible at this distance without a risk of shooting the girl. The mutant began to claw at her ankles, attempting to pull her back into the window so he could finish her off. Only Axel's strength was keeping them from doing that, but he was slowly losing his footing. Maddie, meanwhile, was trying to move back to help him out, but was being pulled away by Hunter.
Let me go!
Maddie shouted at Hunter. He shook his head.
You don't have a weapon! You can't!
Maddie suddenly lost her footing, and I watched in shock as the two of them tumbled to the ground below.
Whoa! Ah!
They slammed into the concrete, falling across the ground like dolls. Almost instinctively, 2 mutants began to stumble in their direction. Hunter! Get up! He groaned, clutching at his side as he tried to get back up. As Hunter was back on his feet, he unsheathed his machete and sliced into one's neck before stabbing another in the chest, kicking his body aside. However, a third pinned him down before the fourth went for Maddie, who was still struggling to get back up. I fired twice, shooting the mutant to death while Maddie tried to get back up. She quickly rushed to Hunter, pushing the mutant off of him. He then stabbed it in the head before eyeing another 4 mutants blocking the way to the RV. I fired twice, killing 2 before my gun clicked, out of ammo. Hunter stood in front of Maddie defensively, protecting her while right above, Axel was attempting to pull Julia to safety. However, the mutants were overwhelming them both. Spencer, who had dropped down into the RV, rushed to the window to see the mutants surrounding his girlfriend and Hunter. He began pounding on the window, shouting loudly.
Maddie! Hey! Get over here! Get away from her!
However, his shouts were irrelevant. One of the mutants grabbed Maddie, shoving her against the wall. He tried to push it off, but the creature's strength was too much for her. Beside her, Hunter cut down another mutant before getting grabbed by the arm, causing him to trip over a broken propane tank. The other one stumbled towards Hunter from behind, preparing to cut him down. Suddenly, a bullet tore through the mutant's head, killing it, and sending the body spiraling into the parking lot below. Axel pulled Julia back onto the ledge, and they scooted away from the window. I looked down, watching as Quinn opened the door of the RV, firing at the other 2 mutants with his hunting rifle. The 2 of them rushed inside, and I stood on top of the RV, helping the kids off the ledge and through the sunroof. I then dropped down, landing on the floor beside Quinn. "Thought you didn't like kids," I asked him, as he helped me up.
While I personally despise children, I feel that Julia's death would render Madeline incapacitated and unable to assist us. So in order to keep my comrade from enduring any more emotional trauma, and to save time digging a grave, I decided to save her.
Quinn explained. I rushed to the driver's seat, watching as the mutants one by one began to swarm the RV. I tried to back up, but the creatures were pushing back. One of them began clawing at the back window, slamming its body against the glass until it began to crack.
We need a distraction.
Maddie exclaimed. I quickly got up, rushing across the room towards our bags. I opened Spencer's duffel bag, earning a glare from him.
Hey, that's my stuff!
He whined. He tried to stop me, but I pushed him aside, pulling out this large white anime body pillow. I stared in disgust at this scantily dressed anime girl on the front before climbing through the sunroof and on top of the RV. I nearly lost my footing, but grabbed onto the metal bar on the side for support. I then reached into my hoodie, pulling out my sulfur lighter. As the mutant began climbing onto the RV, I set the pillow ablaze. I then tossed it towards the nearby open truck, the pillow landing beside the gas, leaking out of the broken propane tank. I dropped back down as the truck exploded, the flames blasting apart the building and sending smoke through the air. Hunter, who had gotten into the driver's seat, backed us out of the parking lot and onto the road while the mutants approached the raging fire. The university was behind us now, and all we had to do was reunite with Anakin and Space and continue on our merry way. That is what we planned. But as always, it's not what happened.